All right, good afternoon. Well, I do spend some time giving out speeches. I haven't done a lot at a lectern like this, so it feels like I'm going to give a homily, but I'm not, so don't worry about it. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome on this beautiful day to St. Stephen's on the Hill for us to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Rattray Marsh Conservation Area. My name is Alvin Tejo. I'm a city councilor in the city of Mississauga and the region of Peel, and I also serve on the Credit Valley Conservation Authority Board of Directors, as well as the CDC Foundation Board of Directors. And I'm so delighted to serve as your host for this very meaningful occasion. We're here today to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Rattray Marsh Conservation Area, a milestone that speaks to the vision, dedication, and love for nature shared by this community over the past 5 decades. A special welcome to my fellow dignitaries joining us today from the Credit Valley Conservation Board of Directors. We'd also like to welcome Councillor Brad Butt and Councillor Stephen Dasco. From the CVC Foundation Board of Directors, we have Ed Arundel, Bob Atkinson, Brad Foteau, and G. Williams. On behalf of CVC, thank you for your ongoing leadership and steadfast support. We're also extending a welcome to the esteemed members of the Rattray Marsh Protection Association, which you will hear more about, and retired journalist John Stewart, who likes to come down to the marsh, take some amazing photos, and you can see some of his articles over there as well. Welcome. I'd also like to extend that former councillor David Cullen was here but had to leave early, and an extra special mention to the Hussey family. Today we have the children of Ruth Hussey with us, and as I understand it, Ruth was an absolute legend and figurehead for Rattray Marsh. For those who have walked the trails, you would have seen a plaque that says, Ruth Hussey, because of her, the marsh is ours. And I've seen the picture up here as well, which you can see on the slideshow. Rattray Marsh is not only a rare, beautiful natural space, but it's also a reminder of what's possible when people come together to protect the environment for future generations. Today's event is both a celebration and a thank you to everyone who has played a role in its history. With that, I'm going to invite our Member of Parliament, Charles Souza, to come on up. He is a neighbor, a resident of the area. He is just down the street from the marsh, and would like you to say a few words here, Charles.
It's a real pleasure to be here, guys. I was just mentioning, I grew up in Sherway on the Etobicoke Creek, and I remember as a kid with my dog racing down to the waterfront, playing with the salamanders, the gardener snakes, the frogs, the toad, all that stuff. Watching and seeing firsthand as a kid growing up, eggs from the turtles and so forth, and I was always captivated by it. I always knew that when I was going to have my family, I wanted them to have the same experience and the same opportunities that I had. So in 1989, I moved to the Rattray Marsh because of you having been able to protect it. And as a result, my kids have always been a part of nature. They've always been able to experience the wonders, the gem of that treasure that's here in our community. It's also kind of the lungs of the community too. I mean, it does a lot of work in the ecology. And to see them skating on occasions in the wintertime or walking through my wife walks out almost every day. God knows I should do too. And it is amazing what that does for our community. It's really amazing is what you've done for our community. The visionaries 50 years ago, even before, and the association trying to protect the marsh. You made this happen. And I'm very proud and somewhat privileged to have had the opportunity to also do my part with government funding to protect and preserve its ecology and its environment. But the real champions, folks like Jean, and all of you who are always there to protect and clean the marsh and then do what's necessary for the benefit of future generations. So congratulations to all of you for what you continue to do to preserve and maintain this wonder in our community. You guys are awesome. Thank you. Thank you for my family, on behalf of my family, for enabling this to be part of our livelihood and future generations will thank you too. You're all champions. Congratulations, everyone.
Thank you, Charles. I'd like to welcome up Jesse DeJagger to the podium, and Jesse will be providing a land acknowledgement as well as a history of Rattray Marsh. Jesse.
Councillor. So as we turn our attention towards the lands of Rattray Marsh, we'd like to do a land acknowledgement. So we acknowledge that the land on which we gather and the entire Credit River watershed is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Specifically, this land is located on Treaty Number 14, which is the head of the Lake Treaty from 1806. The Credit River watershed is also part of the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples today. Treaties made with Indigenous peoples are enduring and include responsibilities for both parties. So we affirm that this land and water is our common source of life, and we must share responsibility for its care and stewardship for now and future generations. And we certainly do that for Rattray Marsh, everybody's supporting it doing. So I'm going to give a little bit of an overview, a retrospective of Rattray Marsh, a little bit of the history, and concentrate on what I think is the most important milestone event, which is its preservation that happened 50 years ago and the fight leading up to it. I wasn't there during the events of that. Some of you were, so apologies if I get it slightly wrong or I'm glossing over details which I know are important to many in the room. But hopefully this gives an overview of where the marsh came from in terms of its use, why it's important to save, and the effort that's gone into preserving it in future generations. So as we think about that land acknowledgement, we think about the people that inhabited this area for thousands of years. And Rattray Marsh's history goes back 15,000. So with changing lake levels in Lake Iroquois and the Lake Ontario, it altered the shoreline environment. However, the area was always important for human use and occupation for many thousands of years as Indigenous peoples traveled along the waterfront and the shoreline areas for hunting and particularly fishing. So Rattray Marsh in its current form is very rich in fish, as we know. In particular, areas were suitable for stopover camping and hunting, and they were connected with the pre-colonial economy of the Great Lakes area. So these artifacts, so the ones you see on the screen right now, were discovered in 2012 from an archaeological survey that was commissioned by CBC. So what you're seeing is 4 pressure flakes from arrowhead and spearhead making made of Onondaga chert, which comes from the North Shore on Lake Erie. So clearly that stone had moved a long distance to come to Rattray. And interestingly, those 2 large stones are sinker stones, and those came from the knoll during the excavation. That's evidence of fishing. So those are used when the rope is tied around them to make nets, and they're cast into the water for fishing. So those are quite old. So we know this area was being used for human occupation. A very fascinating use of the lands. Of course, into the settlement period, during colonialization, after 1806, I mentioned the head of the Lake Treaty, settlement began very quickly, and the lands around Rattray Marsh were surveyed and divided up for settlement and farming. So much of the area around what is now Rattray was suitable for what was known as masty lots, where a lot of the large white pine was used for His Majesty's Navy at the time, as well as for farming. And so a lot of the land was cleared and used for farming, and during the 1800s in particular, some of the areas were really good for orchards and fruit trees, which the area was known for. So skipping ahead a little bit, it wasn't until 1960 that the modern estate of that formed the environment around Rattray Marsh was created, which in the 137th acre, what became to be known as the management of Berrylead Farm. It was established by Harry Fudger in 1916. This included the development of the estate to change from the landscape marsh for additional farming, but more importantly, the construction of the Berrylead Mansion and the other buildings on the estate, some of which are still extant today. This is not a lesson in cultural built form, but there's a lot of information about those in the environment that you can find there. So in 1930, after Mr. Fudger's death, his estate, the Berrylead estate, was managed by the National Trust. Then in 1945, it was purchased by Major James Halliday Rattray. So Rattray, or Major Rattray, was a veteran of the First World War. He was a geologist and a lifelong bachelor. So Rattray purchased these lands in his estate, and it was managed with the helm of his estate manager, Mr. Frank Byrne. So from 1945 to 1959, which was the year of Rattray's death, the estate played host to many friends and dignitaries, including William Lyon Mackenzie King, Igor Sikorsky of the helicopter fame, the Grand Duchess Olga Romanov, which was the sister of the last Tsar of Russia, as well as the singer Robert Goulet, for some reason. So Rattray also tolerated and sometimes encouraged local use of the estate lands, including letting people use the beach on Sundays if they had a permit from urban, or for local children to play in the marsh and be part of the life of the estate. And this includes some of the Hussey children as well. So it was Rattray's years of ownership of the marsh that has lent its name to the property that we call Rattray Marsh today. So upon Rattray's death in 1959, the property passed into his estate, and it was the job of his executor to decide what to do with the lands. Unfortunately, it was believed that Major Rattray intended that the lands be donated to Toronto Township. But apparently he was so appalled at the suggestion of the young town planner, Max Bacon at the time, that the lands would be suitable for a municipal garbage dump, and so he decided against that. But so began the battle for the fate of the lands. So within months of his death, local resident interested in the preservation of the property for its outstanding natural and cultural features started to organize. Led by Dr. Ruth Hussey and her husband Brian, and with the support of Frank Byrne, the long-time estate manager, they formed a small committee and approached the provincial government about acquiring the lands for parkland. Although the case for support was strong, early discussions with the Department of Lands and Forests and the Park Board, as well as the Conservation Council of Ontario, did not lead anywhere. At the same time, Fraser Valley Conservation and the Metro Toronto government, as well as Toronto Township, were considering how the lands could be preserved. Again, while acquisition was recommended by both of the CVC and Municipal Council boards, ultimately the effort was voted down at that time due to costs and competing priorities, so no action was taken. But after these initial efforts, the pressure of the local citizens and the organization of the committee did not yet move the action. The estate had to release the lands for sale. So in 1963, they were sold, and they were sold to Rattray Park Estates Limited. That was a newly formed company of 6 interested development partners, and they purchased the lands for $425,000, and they separated away for the development of Lang. Their intention was for an estate subdivision and the alteration of the marsh into a yacht club and marina basin for $750. There's an alternate history here, but that's in Maria. So when the plans for the development of the marsh hit the community, the reaction was strong and swift. Many felt the development would destroy the important sensitive areas of the marsh, and that it was much better suited as a conservation area at the park. Opposition crystallized again with the formation of the Rattray Marsh Preservation Committee. It was chaired by Dr. Bill Gunn and included Aird Lewis, Ruth and Brian Hussey, John Bradshaw, and Cameron Pagal. Both Bill Gunn and Aird Lewis were the co-founding members of the Nature Conservancy of Canada. And the Preservation Committee was able to have the newly formed NCC take this on as one of their first projects. The goal at that time with the committee was to purchase the whole property from the developer. And together with the support of the South Peel Naturalist Club, the community quickly raised over $150,000 through a campaign. This money was to be offered to CVC to purchase the property when needed. And as the authority was also studying the marsh more carefully in light of the development proposals, and in response to the requests to have CVC optional parting if available and if council were to match funds for acquisition. However, in a crushing blow in 1965, the opportunity to purchase was voted down by council, and they would not be supporting CVC in acquisition of the lands. The opportunity was lost, and in 1967, Toronto Township Council at that time approved the first phase of development. So as bulldozers moved in on the marsh, local opposition was intense, with reports of a local boy even standing in the path of one of these machines. Dr. Ruth Hussey was moved to write a last-minute plea letter to the Globe and Mail in 1967 to decry the treatment of the natural areas in Canada and draw attention to the plight of the Rattray Marsh in particular. This letter generated national support, the donations and other support poured into the Preservation Committee. While the Phase 1 development went ahead, the move to protect the remaining lands increased in pressure. So in response to the work of the committee and the community, CBC commissioned an environmental study by Mr. Dennis Veal, and upon that recommendation and the approval of the board and council, CBC acquired the first 23 acres of the marsh from the developer in 1971. Now this was just the marsh area, and all the remaining uplands and buffer lands were still under threat. So it was in 1973, a few years later, where the political and literally physical tides began to change to support acquisition of the remaining area. Helped by new fill regulations that CBC were to administer, as well as record high Lake Ontario water levels. As well as political support with the election of Dr. Martin Dobkin as the new mayor of what was then the new town of Mississauga, as well as new councillors Mary Ellen Spence locally, as well as Hazel McCalliot as a councillor at that time. There was a lot of political interest in supporting protecting the remaining lands. So after they met with the Preservation Committee and seeing the area in person, they offered to support the acquisition and by expropriation if necessary. The committee itself offered to pay 10% of the cost fundraised from the community through a variable campaign. So it was finally in 1975, at the request of council, CBC expropriated the remaining 56 acres of the estate with funds from the committee, the town of Mississauga, and 50% from the province, as was the formula for parkland acquisition at that time for all conservation authorities. The owners of the land did not fight the expropriation, as the argument for protection had clearly been won by the Preservation Committee. And so it was that on October 5th, 1975, 50 years ago to the day today, Rattray Marsh Conservation Area opened to the public as a protected natural area in perpetuity. But the work of the restoration and conservation was only at beginning. It was in 1979 that the new Rattray Marsh Protection Association was formed, with members from the previous committee, with other experts and other new local citizens that wanted to help steward the land, restore the area, and advocate for the interests of the natural environment. So with the damage done by the developers in the late 60s and early 70s still fresh on the landscape, efforts to restore and care for the marsh commenced, with tree planting, appropriate trail development, and community involvement, including keeping an eye on the marsh, and with the members of the association deputized under the CA Act to help enforce rules and regulations, something that obviously doesn't occur today. Advocacy for ongoing protection was needed, and a major victory was the protection of the marsh from a new sewer main development. And at the behest of the association and with the advocacy and support of Councillor Martin Marlick, a new route for sewer mains was adopted to prevent destruction of the sensitive marsh environment. So throughout the past 50 years, CBC and its citizens, led by the Rattray Marsh Protection Association, has been undertaking countless efforts to steward the marsh. From annual spring cleanups, invasive species removals, education campaigns, and the work of local youth and schools to understand the value of the marsh, the area would not be a success without these efforts. Partnership to support the marsh, particularly through those lean years of funding, was particularly important in preserving this natural area. Today, the marsh is known as a jewel in the green space system of the Credit River watershed. It's home to more than 428 plant species, an astonishing 227 bird species, 26 mammals, 18 reptiles, amphibian species, and 11 different species of fish. Since restoration efforts began, the marsh is supporting the recovery of threatened species like the least bitter, which is on your name tags today. It's been spotted moving in the cattails of the last remaining coastal wetland between Hamilton and Victorolton. It's actually not the last one. We're just building some new ones at Jim Tovey, so it'll lose that record. But the first towards the recovery of these ecosystems on the Great Lakes. So the story of the preservation and care of Rattray Marsh is a testament to the commitment, passion, and dedication of concerned and motivated citizens, organized and activated to protect and care for this precious natural area. So truly, it is the embodiment of Margaret Mead's famous quote, Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So congratulations to you and the Rattray Marsh Protection Association on 50 years.
Thank you, Jesse. I've learned and heard a couple of the stories over the years, but it's always amazing to hear some of them together. And no small part to the Council of the Day for taking that step in protecting the area. It is now my pleasure to introduce Jean Williams, a long-standing leader with the Rattray Marsh Protection Association. For decades, Jean has been a driving force behind the grassroots action, volunteer energy, and community partnerships that have protected and nurtured this special place. Please join me in welcoming Jean Williams.
I'm Jean Williams. Here today, speaking as chair of the Rattray Marsh Protection Association. We are a hands-on, grassroots group of environmentalists. We are one of the reasons why we all are here today, enjoying the 50th celebration of a conservation area and not looking at the development of expensive houses and a marina of Florida of the North at the mouth of Sheridan Creek in the Rattray Marsh. But first, I must explain why I'm not dressed like the usual chair. You may have seen this before if you're one of our many volunteers. This is the uniform of someone who has been involved in hands-on work days in the Rattray Marsh for 50 years. If you come up close, you will see white stains from painting the edges of steps, black paint from my local member mark, and various other stains from various garbage. Who knows, well, who cares? The key thing is, you will see two mallard ducks looking in great shape, enjoying the Canadian marsh ducks that we work hard to protect. That's what it's all about, hence the sweatshirt. I think the late Bruce Hussey, who was such a role model first of all, would be very pleased to see the bee continue her grassroots action and activity. She would be so proud to see her children coming to a 50-year celebration. And our newspaper correspondent, John Stewart, is here to join us. The struggles of the early days, their ups and downs, are shown as part of our exhibits on the side, including the fundraising challenges. A great example of never give in, just keep on trying. To listen to what their local people are saying. To think outside of the political box, particularly in terms of 2 or 4 year terms. Nature doesn't work that way. It is necessary for everyone to work together in this huge global issue of how do we all survive, not just today, but centuries into the future. Everything costs so much today. How do we fund it all? Perhaps we will all adapt and change like some of the species we see today. Or perhaps we will become extinct like others because we didn't act soon enough. We must think not just about Clarkson, but that wonderful round sphere the astronauts see from their spacecraft and rave about. The Rattray Marsh Conservation Area is one of those special places that we have worked hard to protect in perpetuity. We think that communication to and education of the young and old are very important. On our exhibit table, we are exhibiting some of the material we have produced over the years to provide education. Books, videos, DVDs, pamphlets have all been sold to raise funds for the Rattray Marsh. or to provide interpretation of what might be seen or found on a wall through Rattray Marsh. All these were created in the days when people walked through the Rattray Marsh with their eyes open and their ears open, not deafened by blasting AirPods or blinded by the concept looking at an iPhone screen. We have led many interpretive walks through the area, made presentations to schools and others, taken pre-booked school classes on the educational walks. These were all done by volunteers. In the early years of the conservation area, we were kept very busy, as the CVC didn't have the staff needed to manage the area. Guess who went to City Hall to stop the region from putting new sewers through the creek there because the sewers backing up upstream? Guess who had to keep looking for the washed-away bridge over the creek, which was sometimes a tree trunk, a highway guardrail, or planks of wood? Once found, we would manually return them and try to secure them again. This took considerable brain, as there wasn't an unlimited supply of boron to carry out the job. Who kept organizing spring cleanups to remove all the garbage that had accumulated over years and continued to be brought down by the Sheridan Creek? P. Charles Sousa brought several teams down to participate in these work days. There were some real treasures found by his volunteers over the years. As cleanup was often at Mother's Day weekend or near it, some mothers were going to receive unbelievable gifts. Oh, that's lovely, dear. Thank you so much. At least they didn't get the old bed springs or mattresses. They were so sweaty. Who built some of the first boardwalk to keep visitors into a confined area? Not one that got wider and wider as people tried not to get their feet wet. We think that getting the youth of today interested and involved is a key to our future. Education and hands-on experiences are invaluable. Who organized school groups to come and lay wood chips on trails to prevent visitors' shoes from getting caked in mud? This was a fascinating exercise to watch, as we had a mound of wood chips, a number of pitchforks, and numerous large plastic buckets for the students to fill. Initially, each student would endeavor to get a full bucket and then carry it to the area to be covered. It had to be covered to a significant depth to make it last. This was hard work. So, an enterprising student would decide a bucket brigade approach would be appropriate and much better. You only had to carry heavy buckets so far and then hand it over, at which time you would pick up an empty bucket that was on its way back. With a bit of luck, you were the student in charge of the bucket brigade, and you didn't have to do anything except keep the buckets moving. These students were obviously going to go far in life. Has anyone worked on removing invasive species? We've worked on many, but perhaps one of the ones that really stands out is the purple loosestrife. Oh, such a pretty flower. Such a relentless destroyer of wetlands. No natural enemy. We spent years endeavoring to dig it out. Such dreadful root system, intermingling with the next cloud. So very heavy when it was wet. So rock hard when the soil was dry. And so tall, volunteers got lost. We couldn't see them. We were then reduced to cutting off the flowers, the seed heads. There's some information on our exhibit about this plant. But then came the day when we could go and catch the beetle, which had been approved for release in designated areas in Rattray Marsh. How do you catch a beetle that refuses to go down to the bottom of your special bag and insists on staying at the top? So when you open the top to add another one or two, the first one will fly out again. The answer is you have to hold the bottom of the bag so it's at the top. You can see the beetles flying out there and there. only quickly the bottom to add the new ones. It was hilarious. Awful easier to work in pairs. Then, of course, you have to bring them back to the marsh, release them very carefully in specific areas marked in some way so that we could see the effect, if any, of our beetles. I am very happy to say we were successful. Guarding mustard is an ongoing battle for us. It spreads so easily and won't let anything else survive. Such a pretty white flower. There are others. Just ask the CBC. The CBC has taken over organizing the volunteer work days we used to have. They usually meet at Green Cave School. These work days include education and lots of hands-on. We have received several awards in recognition of our volunteer efforts to protect and preserve Rattray Marsh in perpetuity, which we have displayed on our exhibit table. The CBC nominated us for the Waterfront Centre Excellence on the Waterfront Clearwater Award in 1997. This is awarded by the Waterfront Trust based in Washington, D.C. This organization concentrates on waterfronts around the world, seashores, rivers, harbors, lakes, etc. In the 90s, it realized all its awards were going to large organizations, professional planners, governments, but there was no recognition of the efforts of the grassroots actors who were capable of making change happen. They then created this Clearwater Award. You will see from our table that we are in a worldwide international company. We certainly put our part of the Great Lakes on the map at that time. Hopefully, you can see our commitment to the Rattray Marsh Conservation Area and our never-ending efforts to make sure it continues to be a very special area that should be protected, not just for us to enjoy on a Sunday walk, but for all future generations. As described by Jesse earlier, the Rattray Marsh works hard for us with its trees, streams, wetland, and shingle bark. The flora and fauna are here for various purposes in the grand scheme of life. If they're all working hard for us, we must make sure we work hard for them. This will be our legacy. Let us make sure it's a good one, of which we can all be proud. Come and visit us. Slow down, stop and listen. Smell and perhaps feel. You'll be surprised at what you experience. You will know you're in a very special world that is the Rattray Marsh Conservation Area, where the eyes of many hidden bird or animal may be watching you. But until you go there, come and look at the exhibits along the lawn. Speak with us and the other guests in this group to share memories, and don't forget to enjoy the refreshments.
You on stage. Okay. So she needs a seat there.
We're going to get her a leg up a couple of times.
Oh, okay.
She's dead. Thank you, Jean. Thank you for reminding us how grassroots leadership and community passion have shaped the history of Rattray Marsh. And yes, I have brought my kids, not happily at the beginning, down to the marsh to remove some of those invasive species and take out the trash. But, you know, at first, while they might not have liked it, they did take an incredible amount of pride, which I know much of our neighbors have whenever they're involved. Now, it is my honor to announce that later this year, the City of Mississauga will be presenting its Civic Award to the Rattray Marsh Protection Association. This award recognizes the incredible dedication of the volunteers who for decades have worked tirelessly to protect, restore, and educate the public, creating a deep community connection to the marsh. As councillor and resident here in Ward 2, I've seen firsthand how the association has inspired generations, from school children learning about wetlands, to families enjoying trails, to residents who rolled up their sleeves for countless stewardship projects. So today, it is my privilege to present a certificate of recognition to the Rattray Marsh Protection Association on the 50th anniversary of the marsh. Please join me in congratulating them. I'd also like to invite everyone from the Rattray Marsh Protection Association to join me on stage, as well as my council colleagues for a photo.
Politicians that we've done awesome words is very nice to you guys. Not in the audience.
And I think you would try to fit the way we could do a couple layers. Tall people in the back.
Either they meet you or the back.
Here, that's
Well, maybe you could. I'm sure you can see.
One right here.
Thank you.
You're gonna come right back up. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Bob Atkinson, Vice Chair of the Credit Valley Conservation Foundation. The foundation plays a vital role in building partnerships and securing funds that make projects like the protection of Rattray Marsh possible. Please join me in welcoming Bob.
Made some edits. Good afternoon. First of all, I'm not sure who I need to thank for following Jean, but I will do my best. Thank you, Alvin. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bob Atkinson, and I'm proud to be one of the representatives for the Credit Valley Conservation Foundation today. As we celebrate this golden milestone for the marsh, it's important to honor someone, I wonder who that will be, who has carried the stewardship torch for so many years. Jean Williams has dedicated much of her life to making the world a better place. She's been at the heart of protecting the Rattray Marsh for decades. Through her leadership, deep passion, and advocacy, she's helped safeguard it for future generations, while also building strong partnerships between the community, CVC, as well as her role in the foundation. I can also attest, and Brad and Ed and others can agree, that she absolutely gives the best presentations at our quarterly board meetings, so you need to be there for that. So with that, it is my great and absolute pleasure, to present Jean Williams with this certificate of appreciation in recognition of her extraordinary contributions. Your dedication is an inspiration to all of us. Now I'm looking to Holly. Who are we bringing up for photos? All the members from the foundation? Okay, so Ed, Brad, Deanna.
All the foundation board members, please.
She's going to hold my belt. You should, it is yours. You don't, we're not taking it back. I'm in the back of every photo that I like to take on, so. It's great.
You're staying down. Gene said.
Can I go down now?
You can if you like to. Yeah. Do you want to go back out too? So I can hold this.
I'll just say very quickly. Sure. Thank you very much, everybody, for these awards. These were pretty sneaky, and you nothing about this coming, so I'll have to deal with it later. Excuse me.
Thank you, Bob, and congratulations again to Jean. We had to be sneaky, otherwise you wouldn't have let us do it. So the partnership between our foundation and the volunteers and community leaders truly keep this place thriving. It is now my pleasure to welcome Terry LaRue, Interim Chief Administrative Officer at the Credit Valley Conservation Authority. Terry has been a dedicated and strategic leader in protecting and restoring natural spaces across our watershed. Please join me in welcoming Terry.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real honor to be here with you today to celebrate 50 years of Rattray Marsh as a conservation area. Rattray Marsh is truly one of the crown jewels of our watershed. It's what we refer to as a rare natural gem right in the heart of Mississauga. And over the decades, it has become a sanctuary not only for wildlife and wetlands, but for the thousands of people who come to Rattray to walk, learn, and connect with nature. What makes Rattray Marsh so special is not just its ecological value, but the story of how it came to be protected. It stands as a testament to the power of community action, people who cared deeply about the landscape and fought to see it preserved, and the partnerships that have carried that legacy forward for half a century. To recognize that legacy and to honor the generations of citizens, volunteers, and leaders who have made Rattray Marsh what it is today, we are unveiling a new plaque. Later this fall, it will be installed on a large boulder at the base of the Becks Hill access point, where it will welcome visitors for decades to come. It's my privilege now to unveil this plaque, which commemorates 50 years of conservation, stewardship, and community commitment at Rattray Marsh. I'm going to unveil it with the nice little flip. It's more of a lovely flip. And then what I will say is following the closing remarks by Councillor Tedjo, we'll ask everyone to join us for a group photo with the plaque.
Thank you, Terry. What an incredible afternoon this has been. Today, we not only celebrated 50 years of Rattray Marsh Conservation Area, but also the people and the partnerships that made this milestone possible. From grassroots volunteers to community leaders, the ongoing efforts by the CBC and the Rattray Marsh Protection Association. This marsh is here because of all of you, the residents, businesses, partners, and friends who have cared for it over the years and continue to do so today. Together, you've ensured that this unique natural space will be here for generations to come. On behalf of the CBC, the City of Mississauga, thank you for joining us today and being part of this legacy. Please enjoy the rest of the afternoon, explore the trails, share your stories, and take in the marsh's beauty. And please join us for a photo. Here's the next 50 years of Rattray Marsh.